Swinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister's deal was a bad deal, and the public deserve to have the final say, not just the hundreds of thousands who are marching outside, but the millions of people across our country.
Order. I recognise there are very strongly held views on both sides of the House and on both sides of this debate, but the leader of the Liberal Democrats must be heard. And it is unconscionable if there is an attempt to stop someone being heard. Joe Swinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the people who are outside this building right now will be heard, and they deserve the final say, along with millions across the country. So the most urgent thing right now, Mr. Speaker, is that the Prime Minister complies with the law. And I ask your guidance. Would it be possible to suspend the sitting for a short time to allow the Prime Minister to go and send his letter and come back and make a statement to the House to confirm that he has done so?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm most grateful. I think all of us in this House are aware of the responsibilities that we have. This is a crisis that we are in. And I'm thankful that the House has voted the way it has done on the amendment this afternoon. There is a clear expression from this House that we cannot crash out on the 31st of October.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the vote on this amendment because it shows that a majority of this House have stood up for more democracy, not less. They've stood up for more scrutiny, not less. And they have also voted to rule out a disastrous no deal. But I believe it will also give us a chance, Mr. Speaker, to let the people have a final say as they're demanding outside here now, over 1 million of them, demanding that right. The Prime Minister has changed his own mind more times than we can possibly count, most recently on the issue of the border in the Irish Sea. It cannot be right that the British people are the only ones who are not allowed to change their minds, and I look forward to the opportunity that this vote affords us to come back to put whatever deal is in front of us to that confirmatory ballot.
Point of order, Joanna Cherry.
Mr. Speaker.
Two possible scenarios at play here. One is either that everything that appears on screen, on off screen and so on, within negotiations and out in the public sphere, it's all real. This whole process has just been one disaster after another, and it's all organic. Or it's a dog and pony show. And, you know, the idea that it's a dog and pony show actually makes more sense at this point. You know, Theresa May's withdrawal agreement would have shafted us forevermore, and as predicted, Boris Johnson's 2.0 equivalent might have been on surface level somewhat better, but it was still effectively shafting, because that was the only way that a deal would get through, or well, agreed upon between the UK and the EU. Because why would the EU concede? They had everything they wanted right there in front of them. Either way, we're fucked. So, take her or leave it. But it was this shafting that Theresa May tried to put on us 3 times on the bounce that justified all these people in this parliament voting against it. If it was a decent deal, they still would have voted against it, but it just so happened that Theresa May came away with a shoddy deal. And the same thing is on the verge of happening here again. They're all talking about voting against Boris Johnson's deal. They've already got their fucking extension, but their Ben bill, they've blocked no deal, and now they want to put it back to the people. Give these dickheads their people's votes. People have a right to change their mind. Is that right? Well, that's funny. You know, considering you're dictating the terms of what would be on any potential referendum in the future. You know, just cut to the fucking chase and get over with. The insult to the IQ is ridiculous. The amount of people that stand outside that fucking parliament day in, day out and genuinely think that their incessant whinging with their placards makes a difference. The people in this parliament know exactly what they're doing. It's pretty fucking self-evident. You know? Anything other than actually respecting the referendum results seems to be getting off a rather easy ride, which I find rather fucking strange, but to enact that referendum results. But it seems that is the one thing that will not be occurring anytime soon. And if it does occur, it will be some watered down equivalent comes to something, when every proposal that's been put forth for a vote regarding a potential agreement for us to leave is near enough, arguably, worse than just staying in. What does that tell you about what's going on here? But yet, the people have a right to change their minds. The people deserve the final say. I don't get the logic when these politicians like Helmet Head say that Parliament's in a deadlock, so it's only fair it goes back to the people. And ask them what exactly? Whether they want to leave without a deal or remain? Or ask them, do they want Theresa or Boris' shitey deal or remain, or what? What's going to happen? What question would be posed? And even if something was clear-cut, an overall majority from the population, regardless of the question, Parliament would still be in their so-called deadlock. It's just shit. They are trying their damnedest, and they are being rather successful, it has to be said, in creating this narrative that they're not trying to stop Brexit, it's merely no deal that they need to block. Or the other one that gets thrown about quite often is the current quote-unquote chaos and disaster that is this Brexit shit show is justification, and the only reason that they're now out there campaigning and protesting and demanding a people's vote or revoking the Article 50 in its entirety. But yet, these are the same politicians, for example, that were arguing to prevent Article 50 ever being activated to begin with, standing out relentlessly campaigning for people's vote after people's vote after people's vote, trying their damnedest at every possible turn to fucking stop this whole process because they couldn't accept the referendum result. And you fast forward to where we are now, and Theresa May has given them all the ammunition they need to be able to appear as if they're no longer anti-democratic crybaby lefty wankers, and instead they are merely politicians looking out for the people, their constituents, the job loss, etc, etc. All the audacity of ending freedom of movement, because this just seems to be something that will not fucking go away. People want an end to migration. What do the lefties do? Spout off tropes about far-right racists. Talk about workers' rights. All the UK's industries have crashed and burned over the past few decades, and that's not to put all the blame in the EU's direction, but to try and act as if leaving the European Union will all of a sudden breach workers' rights and marginalised disabled people and increase poverty levels, when these things are happening while we're part of the European Union. I mean, these smug fucks stand up there day after day peddling this false narrative, and they have to keep up appearances, obviously, because they, alongside the media, have propagated a narrative that, as I said, is a fucking insult to the intelligence looking at it. Some of the incessant nonsensical shit they come away with, but because the media go alongside it and present it as somewhat real and factual, it appears to be so to the public. I mean, when they first started their people's vote campaigning 2 years ago or whenever it was for the first time, the argument was getting put back to them at the time that no deal would be on the ballot paper, and no deal being on the ballot paper came up consistently. But yet they kept arguing that Remain should be on the ballot paper, so in effect it was an attempt at a second referendum because they didn't like the result, regardless of what excuse they came up with. And now we fast forward to them now trying their damnedest at every turn to block no deal, and only then, when it's blocked, they will finally push on ahead, probably to be met with acceptance from those that dictate proceedings. A ballot paper that will have Remain and Theresa May's deal or Boris Johnson's 2.0 equivalent. But yet it's interesting when you listen to them talk about how they should vote against Boris Johnson's deal, as it would be a detriment to the country. And to a degree they are somewhat justified, because it is more or less a sellout, no different that, or not different from Theresa May's attempt. And just as they claimed about Theresa May's deal, they say the same about Boris Johnson's, that it would be detrimental and catastrophic to the country, and they want that to be on the ballot paper with Remain. But yet, they don't want no deal to be on the ballot paper because that would be equally as catastrophic and detrimental to the country. The difference being, of course, that they know fine well that no deal most likely would win a referendum question regarding remaining or no deal. But if the question is posed with any form of agreement that can be reached or has already been reached and Remain as the two options, they know fine well that the people that do decide to even participate in any of those referendums would vote to Remain. So it's rather humorous to sit and listen to these dickheads that think that the people's vote is coming and it's incumbent that we put it back to the people, etc, etc. And they are so easily duped by these people, apart from the ones obviously that are well aware and well on board with the duping themselves. But for those that are oblivious and genuinely just think the sun shines out the arses of Caroline Lucas and Baktu Swinson and Ian Beta Blotford and David fucking Lamy and Anna Supri and all the lefties in general, or they can't find themselves confused as to why no deal has been removed from the equation in its entirety for the damage it would supposedly do, but yet they urged the politicians to vote against Boris Johnson's 2.0 for equal damage it would cause. They refused for no deal to be put on any future referendum down the line because of the damage it would cause, but yet they're quite prepared to put Boris Johnson's 2.0 on a ballot paper, even though, by their own admission, it would cause damage to the country.
Perspective now, Kirsty, what does the SNP need to do this coming week?
So our amendment that we put down today was about asking for an extension to happen and asking for a general election to happen, and we don't yet know whether the Prime Minister Boris Johnson will put in that letter requesting that extension or not. I mean, really that is the key thing that needs to happen right now. We need to have that extension asked for so that we do not crash out in a hard Brexit on the 31st of October.
So in other words, leave without a deal. But of course, you can't just come out and say that. Oh no. They have to band about these premeditated, over-the-top, reworded sentences to justify their actions. They have to make no deal or hard Brexit sound as catastrophic as possible. But I have to say it falls a bit short, like your hair, when it comes from the SNP, because the same outcome would occur if they were to get their independence referendum. Funny that, the exact same outcome would befall us.